This episode is about the number 29 team in the Juggernaut Index, the Oakland Raiders. There aren't very many NFL cities where Jason Campbell would be welcomed as a franchise saver, but Oakland is unique. Raiders fans have been subjected to spectacularly bad quarterback play last season, so the addition of a league average signal caller is a massive upgrade. Before we consider the outlook for Oakland's offense in 2010, let's take a moment to appreciate just how miserable Jamarcus Russell was last season. In his 9 starts, Russell somehow finished with fewer than 130 passing yards 7 times. And the Raiders averaged 9.8 total points per game. He completed only 48.8% of his passes in 2009, easily the worst rate in the league. He lost 6 fumbles and was intercepted 11 times, and he threw just 3 touchdown passes. The Raiders finally released him in early May, then filed a grievance against him later in the month to seek repayment of over $9 million. And now, apparently, Russell has purple drank himself out of the league. So, that's a pretty bad year. It was virtually impossible to evaluate any of Oakland's skill players last season because the quarterback situation was abysmal. We all know that Campbell has his flaws, of course. He has the disturbing tendency to make nothing out of something, opting for checkdowns and sacks when the game situation demands a deep downfield risk. But he's also a legit NFL quality quarterback, and Jamarcus simply was not. Campbell's completion percentage has improved in each of his 4 seasons, with 64.5 last year, and he established new career highs in both quarterback rating with 86.4, yards per attempt at 7.1, and passing TDs with 20. Campbell still needs to officially win the starting job, but he's competing against such luminaries as Kyle Boller, Bruce Gradkowski, and Charlie Frye, so you can assume that he'll be under center for the Raiders in Week 1. In terms of preparation and focus, he's basically the anti-Jamarcus. Receiver Louis Murphy offered the following comments about Campbell in a 2-part interview with Shutdown Corner. Playing with Campbell has been a lift to the entire team. He's a leader who commands the huddle, and he's been through a few offenses, which is good because our offense is similar to the ones he runs. You watch him in meetings, and he works really hard, and everyone's working hard for him. In fact, Campbell has been asked to learn a new offense from a new coordinator in nearly every season of his college and pro career. So the current transition is just business as usual. He doesn't lack arm strength, which means there's hope for Oakland's vertical passing game in the year ahead. The Raiders haven't delivered a 1,000-yard wideout or even a 750-yard wideout since Randy Moss in 2005. But we saw flashes of playmaking ability from both Louis Murphy and Chaz Schilens last year. Those two combined for 3 scores in the 4th quarter of that surreal Week 13 win against Pittsburgh. Murphy impressed many in his first season, especially when you consider the team context, but Schilens appears to have the higher fantasy ceiling. Chaz has ideal size, 6'4", 225, and his measurables basically grade out at mutant superhero level. 4.38 speed with a 43-inch vertical. He's a nice late-round flyer, although clearly none of Oakland's wide receivers are ideal Week 1 fantasy starters. Darius Hayward-Bay and rookie Jacoby Ford both have ridiculous speed. Ford crushed the field in the 40-yard dash at the Combine at a 4.28. So they can't be completely dismissed as threats. There's been plenty of Hayward-Bay off-season propaganda, but he's exactly the sort of player who should be great in non-contact situations. When the hitting starts, we'll see how much progress he's actually made. DHB caught only 9 passes on 40 targets as a rookie. We should all be skeptical. When all the stats are finally in, Zach Miller will probably lead the Raiders in receptions and yardage once again. He's been a reliable option in a hideous offense since entering the league, and he's now paired with a quarterback who, despite his various shortcomings, has always targeted the tight end position. Miller placed 12th in the initial Yahoo composite tight end ranks, and I'll probably drop a spot or two in my colleagues properly rate John Carlson, but that says more about the depth at the position than it does about the player himself. There's certainly reason to be optimistic about Miller in 2010. One aspect of the Raiders' offense that hasn't been a total embarrassment recently is the ground game. Oakland finished 10th in the league in rushing in 2008, and they surely would have placed higher than 21st last season if Michael Bush, with 4.8 yards per carry, would have gotten a greater share of the workload. Instead, Justin Fargas and Darren McFadden combined for 233 carries at 3.6 yards apiece. Fargas is out of the mix this season, and the well-compensated McFadden returns. Everyone knows that D-Mac has excellent speed with a 4.33, but he's been a tentative, fumbly, injury-prone back over the 2 NFL seasons. Oakland's head coach Tom Gable reportedly intends to form a Bush-McFadden backfield committee this year. "I actually believe they're both number ones," he said in June, and apparently no one laughed. If that's going to be the arrangement, expect Bush to get the goal line work. By the time draft day arrives, he'll likely emerge as the fantasy community's preferred choice. In my early industry drafts, Bush has been selected somewhere in the round 6 to 8 range, typically, though not always, ahead of McFadden. You're not going to own Oakland's defense in fantasy leagues, obviously. That unit gave up 23.7 points and 361.9 total yards per game last year, and they ranked 29th in rushing yards allowed with 155.5. The Raiders addressed the D admirably on draft day, however, selecting linebacker Rolando McClain with the 8th overall pick, and defensive lineman Lamar Houston at number 44. McClain and safety Tyvon Branch with 124 tackles in 2009 are the 2 Oakland IDPs you'll want to own. Nnamdi Asomugha is a brilliant corner, but he isn't targeted enough for fantasy purposes. Over the past 3 seasons, he's averaged just 36 tackles and 1 interception per year. And that's pretty much everything we care to say about Oakland. The early schedule appears friendly at Tennessee versus St. Louis, at Arizona, and versus Houston. So there's a chance that this season will begin in not an entirely terrible way. If you're sipping the silver and black drink, please comment.